very much. As Gabriela said already, until last year we worked for a leading global mining company in London, Sebastian and myself, desk to desk. Sebastian was in charge of the global nickel book. He was head of sales for nickel, and I was in charge of the global ferroalloys book for that company.
So let me tell you a story. Imagine it's a grey, rainy day in London in November, and I'm sitting at my desk, and I received a call from our communication manager. There's a German foundry who wants to buy a truckload of ferronickel. So I was getting really excited. I'm always happy to go after new business. So I picked up the phone and I called the foundry. We talked, how do you buy your ferroalloys? And in the end, I asked, how did you actually find us?
Very well, Herr Kreft. We actually looked for new suppliers online, and that's how we found you.
So, very excited to go after the business and putting out an offer as quickly as possible. It was a stressful day. I had to remember to pick up my children from the nursery that day. It was my turn. I went through our new customer onboarding checklist, which was quite a long list. And I started with the risk department, counterparty due diligence. So I called the risk department. I said, there's a new customer in Germany. Can we do a KYC check, know your customer check, pretty quickly, please?
Yeah, crikey, Sebastian, but we've got some competing priorities here. The copper customers need to be onboarded as well. And we need the letter of incorporation and all the other documents. If you can provide them 2-3 days, that's fine.
2 to 3 days, okay. So what's next on the list? Credit risk management. So I called the credit risk guys. I said, look, there's this customer in Germany. He wants 30-day payment terms. Can we give them open account?
Well, Sebastian, if you have an audited financial statement, we can check that. But we're a bit under pressure at the moment because one of the colleagues is actually off on sick leave.
Phew, that wasn't going so well so far. So what was next on the list? I need to find out what are the logistics costs to get the ferronickel from Rotterdam to Düsseldorf. I need to calculate the network after all. So I called the logistics partner and said, can I please get a freight quote as quickly as possible?
Sebastian, there's currently Koningentag in the Netherlands, and we can't get any kind of quotes until Monday from our freight forwarder. So you need to wait, I'm sorry.
Again, not the answer I was looking for. So what was next? The legal department. Of course, the legal department. So the German customer does not even want to read our 20-page general terms and conditions. They said they don't really have time for that. So I asked our legal department, would it be possible that just for this one spot transaction, that the customer could use their GTCs to govern the transaction?
That's a very delicate matter because obviously the terms and conditions of the customer are in German and we need to give it to an external lawyer to check. If you're willing to bear the costs, that's fine. And have you checked whether there's a sanction and anti-bribery and force majeure clause in it?
Again, I was feeling really, really frustrated now. It was still raining in London. The day has gone on, but then the worst call of all arrived. It was the nursery. I forgot to pick up the children and then the last two in the building. What an experience.
Yeah. I mean, look, a bit exaggerated, but it really happened like that. I mean, I shared the desk with Sebastian and I could see his frustration on that day, and it was really difficult to just onboard this customer in a very short time period. And personally, I've made similar experiences quite a few times, even with existing customers, and if I look around here, I'm sure everyone has made a similar experience once or twice in their career. If not, raise your hand. I'm very willing then to work for your company if you've ever been, everything went very smoothly. Guess not. One. Excellent. No, but I think everyone can relate to that. It is difficult, it is complex.
Ferroalloy transactions are complex. There's a lot of people involved, there's a lot of information that you need to collect, and actually the regulation is getting tougher and tougher on this topic. So what can you do? You have two options. So either you just say, I stick to my existing customer base, and believe me, there's a lot of people that I've spoken to that told me, actually they already know all of the customers. Or you put in a lot of hard work to onboard new customers. And you know what? Our industry, the ferroalloy industry, is quite slow to adopt new technologies which could help you.
Well, what was the biggest innovation in ferroalloys trading in the last 40, 50 years? Just looking around. I would probably say this. The electronic mail, also called email. It makes life a bit easier. You can send it around directly to your customers or to your suppliers. But it is, of course, difficult in this regard. And we are in a world where platforms dominate actually already the industry.
And let's look at another example. So if you look at New York, 1903, there was a British member of parliament, Sir Montagu, who said, look, 1903, Easter Parade in New York, I don't believe that the introduction of motor cars will ever affect the riding of horses. What do you think? How did this picture look 10 years later? Can you spot any horse? And I'm sure that the brick and mortar bookstores, the travel agencies, and the large department stores had similar thoughts at the time.
Well, what's the takeaway? Change can come actually very quickly, and we need to look at our industry and see what kind of digital revolution is actually out there. And we need to also understand that we as consumers live already in a platform world. Platforms have changed the way we buy, we consume certain things. I mean, the largest taxi company in the world is Uber. The largest department store in the world is now these days Amazon. And the largest hotel chain in the world is actually Airbnb. Now, there's of course the question, can this work in our industry? Is there actually a place in the metals industry for this? Well, there is. And let us give you actually 5 key examples of the steps of a ferroalloys transactions where already today technology can help us to transform actually this industry.
So it all starts with counterparty due diligence. You want to know who are you dealing with, and not only to mitigate risk, but also to actually to comply with the law. Because there's a lot of new regulation coming out around know your customer, anti-money laundering, and if you don't comply with it, it can cost you more than $1 million at least. So BNP Paribas, they did a study this year, and they asked commodity companies, buyers, sellers, traders, whether digital platforms can add value in this industry. 85% said yes, digital platforms can add value, and the #1 incentive to use platforms, in their opinion, was extending the company's customer or supplier base.
You might say again, I mean, we know this excuse, we know already all customers out there. But if you think about that, there are just in Europe over 4,000 foundries that buy metals or ferroalloys in some shape or form. You can't know all of them. So digital platforms will actually give you a way, an opportunity to broaden your customer or your supplier base significantly.
Next, let's have a look at credit risk management. So non-payment is probably one of the biggest risks in any commodity transaction. What can you do? You can use letters of credit, you can use documentary collections, but you know what? All of it is quite expensive, and there's a lot of buyers out there which just simply don't accept it. What else could you do? You could have your in-house credit team that goes through annual reports and studies them and gives out credit limits. But is it really worth it for small spot transactions?
Well, that's actually where credit insurance these days has become sexy again. Euler Hermes has launched a new product which is called the single invoice coverage. And what it does actually, it covers single transactions. It is not a portfolio insurance anymore. It's much fairer, it's much faster, it's instant. You get an instant quote for every counterparty, and a not so creditworthy customer has to pay a higher premium versus a much more creditworthy customer who pays a very, very low premium. So that's actually innovation that is already out there these days.
Let's have a look at logistics. So these old-fashioned paper road bill of ladings are still used for proof of delivery, for fiscal representation, and they're still used for insurance claims. Now imagine if we had electronic documents, which you could use to track the parcels throughout the logistics value chain. If you think about it, a pizza transaction, which is worth 16 euros, where you order 2 pizzas through an online service, is more sophisticated than buying, let's say, 350,000 euro worth of metals in a truck.
Well, I guess living in London, I'm always a bit careful when it comes to numbers printed on the side of buses or trucks, so we need to be a bit careful with that. But nevertheless, let's just have a look. Platforms can give you instant rates for warehouses, trucking rates as well. So if we look at, for instance, this example, what do you actually need in order to come up with a transaction rate from X works down to DDP? On the one side, you just need pretty much the address of the delivery location. You need to know what they are buying, the quantity. You need to actually just define where's the material currently stored, what is the custom status of that. And all those information are actually already there when you start a negotiation with a counterparty. If you put that on a platform, that gives you actually the opportunity to come up with instant rates for trucking, for warehousing, without actually consulting your logistics department, etc. That's the advantage that platforms can give you. And when it comes to trucking rates, there are even platforms out there that can compare trucking rates of 1,000 trucks instantly, real time, and give you the best rate. So there's no waiting time anymore for Koninginnedag in the Netherlands or something like that.
I really like this public holiday in the Netherlands. So let's come to the final one, which is also my favorite. It's general terms and conditions. So negotiating general terms and conditions with a counterparty is extremely frustrating. And it adds very little value. So if you look at the Guinness Book of Records, Frank has an entry for the longest GTC negotiation, which finished after 380 days.
Well, without concluding a contract actually in the end. Because we couldn't agree then on the price anymore after 380 days.
But if you don't agree on the GTCs, it can also be dangerous because you don't have a binding legal agreement. So you send your GTCs, the other party sent their GTCs, you end up in the battle of the forms. And the battle of the forms is not a good legal situation to be in. And believe me, even some of your legal advisors are not sure of all of the pitfalls of the battle of the forms process.
So the key question is, why has the ferroalloys industry not managed to come up with standard trading agreements actually in the last 40 years? Because if we look at the LME has managed in the 70s already to come up with a standard trading agreement for nickel. Then, if we continue that journey, in 2001, the SCOTA agreement was developed. The SCOTA agreement is a standard coal trading agreement, and that was developed through the platform Global Coal, which trades thermal coal. Next step on that journey was actually the iron ore standard trading agreement, developed again by a platform, Global Ore. So it really raises the question, why isn't there something like that for the ferroalloys trading industry? And it would make all our lives a lot easier, and probably everyone, much happier.
Well, I'm not sure, Frank, that everyone would be much happier. I think the external legal advisors would probably not be so happy. But is there anyone out here who likes dealing with the external legal advisors?
No. Well, these were just a couple of examples where we think there is already today a solution out there that can transform this industry. Digital platforms will play a major role in B2B business. There's no doubt that this is already the beginning of the future. You might say, and you might raise the question, well, is that the end of our personal relationships and the human interaction in our business?
Actually, I would argue it's the opposite. By using new technologies, you can make processes faster and more efficient. So you have actually more time to spend with your customer, with your supplier, or with your family. Just imagine if I had had that technology on that rainy day in London. Imagine that you had that technology available. You should really ask yourself, are you getting prepared? Together, let's take this industry into the future. Thank you very much.